Besides sending the police, you might want to send an ambulance or a hearse.
Hello, Billy Ho here, and we're going to do the DraftKings show for the 2023 Canadian Open, Oakdale Country Club in Toronto, Canada. I'm joined by the DFS chef, David, and we're just going to kind of go through some DraftKings pricing, do a little early ownership, maybe look for some pivots and plays and whatnot, and see what's catching our eye this week. Huge field. It's an open championship with pretty top heavy type players. So there's going to be all kinds of different ways you can build lineups. You can go real balanced heavy, you can go extreme stars and scrubs, and you can do a little bit of everything, really, two up top. So we'll talk about all that. And I'll introduce David. How's it going, buddy?
I'm doing good, looking forward to this week, but obviously pay attention to the news, keep the ears open because we might be seeing a whole bunch of WDs with coming. And I tweeted it out earlier. I don't think it's going to happen, but as we record this, I know the players are currently in a meeting. The major fuck you would be all the players walk out and we have no tournament this week.
Oh,
But
God.
I don't think that's going to happen. So we're going to do this as we have that we're playing golf this week.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't already heard or you were follow Twitter or whatever, what David's talking about is the we've had this big live versus PGA battle. They've gone to court over it. PGA as don't allow PGA doesn't allow live players on its normal tour events. The only events they get to play are the majors and things like that, and so whatever. Well, now they've announced some sort of agreement with Live to where everybody's going to be happy again, and I guess they all had a big kumbaya moment. I haven't read the whole article yet. That's probably a show for another day, or you can catch a Rick Run Good or somebody that's more in the know. But anyway, we're playing like Dave said. We're playing as we had a tournament. I will put a screenshot up because I put it together a little while ago. Once we get into this, I'll flash it up throughout. I've got a list of all the players that WD'd because they qualified for the U.S. Open today. And so don't worry about that. Or you can, and it's still just Tuesday. So DraftKings is liable to have them removed from the player pool anyway and have the new shooters in with pricing by tomorrow. Usually, if you give them a day's advance notice like this, they usually have no problem updating it. So you'll see the emails rolling in as we talk. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. I wanted to just jump on to Rick Run Good's cheat sheet first so I could get an idea. I actually have not seen this yet. I was real busy doing some other stuff today, and he hadn't had ownership projections out yet. So this is just a first look, and it will change. It is just Tuesday, but it does give you a good jump off point. Looking up here up top, you got Rory McIlroy, who I figured was going to be the highest owned, even though he's $1,000 more expensive than the next guy up. Like when it comes to fields like this, you can build any lineup you want. You can build. I was building like Rory Rahm lineups last week, and Scheffler. I was building two 5-digit players easily, and I actually did a pretty good job of getting my lower players through. I just had a few guys that were in the mid range that failed me. So other than that, uh, I'll kick it over to you, Dave. We're gonna go from like I believe we said somewhere around Shane Lowry and up because those are the top players in my opinion, and I think there's a tier underneath that. So just give us a quick rundown on your stats for the week and who you're looking at up top.
Yeah. Each and every week, strokes gain approach is going to be the main focus that I'm looking at this week. It's not on my cheat sheet, but if you want to go dig even more in depth, what we're looking at this week based on like the yardage of each hole, we're probably looking at like short wedges for a
Yes.
lot of guys on second shots. And then I would say proximity from 200 plus would be the other extreme. So like real short wedges to long irons is what you're looking at for second shots. So if you wanted to even factor approach down even more so, you could go and look at those two ranges in particular. Strokes gained putting, precisely more bent grass. I do believe this is a bent POA mix, but
Something
I'm
like
looking,
that. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm looking at bent in particular. Driving distance, as well as good drive percentage factored in there, is what I'm kind of focusing in on. Par five scoring average, as well as birdie or better percentage. What we've seen over the years, and this particular tournament has been played since like 1904. Granted, it's the Canadian Open, just like the U.S. Open. We've been seeing different courses year in and year out. This is a brand new course for the RBC Canadian. And a stat that I've really started to key in on is a birdie to bogey ratio as well. And then I also have sand save percentages factored in there. I've never kind of mentioned this that much, but like comp courses that I'm kind of looking at this week would be the course they played at last year for the Canadian Open. They, from what I've read and the pods that I've listened to, St. George's is very similar to what this course is set up like. Also, I've read that Detroit Golf Club is a course that you can look at. TPC Deer Run might be one that you would consider. Sedgefield could be another one. TPC River Highlands I've seen mentioned, and then also TPC Craig Ranch is another course that you could possibly look at this week for comp courses. And then as we talk upper range golfers that we're looking at, obviously, the top range of the 10K plus, I think any one of those three make a legitimate case that you could go to. I know from watching Rick's podcast, Rory obviously being a two-time winner here, back-to-back two-time winner from 2019 and 2022 because it wasn't played in 2020 and 2021 due to COVID. Recently, he has looked like he's starting to regain form from last week as well as the PGA Championship. But the one area that he has suffered a little bit are his short wedges.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And the putter as well is a bit up and down as well. So that would be something you could possibly consider. Obviously, you see he's ranking 19th in my model right now. Sam Burns, a guy that we all know him as Bermuda Burns, but he still is positive on bent.
Oh, yeah.
So he is someone that you could possibly consider as well. Strong finish at St. George's last year. Terrell Hatton's playing just incredible golf. So, I mean, you see he's ranking out number one in my model. But I from the pods I've been watching and the articles I've been looking at, a lot of people are even considering bypassing all three of these guys and starting their builds with Matt Fitzpatrick this week, which I have no issue going to. The miscut of the PGA Championship I can kind of overlook. I didn't mention Harbor Town, but with the fairways the way they are and the rough the way that it is, I mean, I'm reading it's 4 to 5 inch rough. I don't know how thick it is, but it's definitely long. It might not be dramatically thick, where if it's just long, they can get their way out of it. But you can almost see, and that's why I have good drive percentage. You can almost see that you still want to be somewhat long, but you still want to be on the fairways because if you miss the fairways, it could possibly be a one shot penalty for missing the fairways if the rough is that thick.
Right.
So Fitzpatrick is someone I'm looking at. Corey Connors definitely was a letdown for me last week because I used him a decent amount last week. So I'm looking at Justin Rose as kind of another guy who you can see ranking second in my model. Not as long as he once was, but still very accurate off the tee. And again, he was T4 at St. George's last year at this event. So he's someone I'm looking at. I did catch the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast, and I know Kenny Kim has Fleetwood as one of his cash game cornerstones. I myself, and we've talked about it, and I've made it known that I can't stand playing Tommy Fleetwood when he is priced up, like 8,500 plus. I kind of fell for him. What was it? 2 weeks ago at the Schwab, and he was major chalk, and he missed the cut. He missed the cut by a stroke. But once again, whenever he's chalk, he seems to, flop. So there's no way, at least in my opinion, I'm paying $9,600 for Tommy Fleetwood. I will be glad to go to Shane Lowry at 94 over Tommy Fleetwood. So, if I was building my cash game cornerstones, I would definitely go Fitzpatrick, Rose, Lowry, where I know Kenny had Rose, Fleetwood, Lowry. I'm finding the extra 300 from Fleetwood to get to Fitzpatrick.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. That's a really, really great take because you just mentioned Fitzpatrick and Rose can both roll the rock too. And that's what puts them above those because you have to make birdies. You have to make putts this week because you're looking at a 20 plus under possibility. And Rose, actually, like you said, is distance. I don't want to say distance challenged, but he's not as long as he used to be, but he's still pretty accurate. And that's where he suffered a bit, like in the PGA and going back to some of the longer courses. He lost a little bit off the tee in both the Schwab and the PGA, but this course is going to be right up his alley because he's going to be able to hit a lot more fairways. And you can see how well his approach game. I mean, plus almost 3/4 of a stroke and fantasy points gained almost 2.5. And that's why he's to almost 25%. But that might be okay. I'm hoping maybe Fleetwood and hopefully these guys down here, that Cam Young can't, that seems fishy to me, 25%. That dude's been absolute crap for like the since the Heritage. And going, he had that great Masters run, and everybody thought the new caddy was going to be the shit. And but he suffered with the putter, and but the ball striking seems to be good around the green, and putting has killed him. Maybe they think because I know he hits the required shot, so he doesn't always need his. He can hit a 1-iron probably 300 yards, so he doesn't need. If he can hit more fairways, then he might be sneaky good, and maybe that's why he's getting a lot of ownership. But that's dipping into the next category. But I really didn't have anything to add to what you said going up top. It's going to be Rory. Are you going to play Rory? Because Rory, like I said, can hit irons and 3-woods all day, and he because he his actual game plan at Memorial, he hit a ton of 3-woods, and that's why he was really playing well. And like you said, he just suffered on the approach game, and because he just wasn't hitting his approaches close enough. And when he did, his problem to me when I watch him play on TV, the eyeball test, are those birdie putts from about 8 or 9 feet to about 12 to 13 feet, where they're right in that range that he just misses way too many of those. And the good players and the winners make those putts. They make an extra 2 or 3 more putts than their opponents make in those weeks. So Rory would be a tough call for me up top. All these guys are great plays, and what I'll probably be doing is maybe getting a piece of all of them and doubling up like I talked about last week. You can easily play Burns and Fitz all day long. You can play Hatton and Fitz all day long. Rose is second man in, like Hovland last week was 9,700. He was my second man in on almost every line. Well, not on every lineup I played him in. Let's put it that way. He was the second man in. Yeah, that Rose. What was it? I forget. Scheffler, Hovland, Siwoo, Connors, and then I had a couple other guys that made the cut. So Connors was the one that missed the cut. So that was looking like a real monster lineup until Connors was always missing the cut, but that's neither here nor there. But getting down here a little bit more, here's where that's why the ownership drops off the map. But I really like the Gala. The dude just can flat out make birdies, and he has been really off with the driver lately. And maybe a shorter course, he can club down a little bit and hit a few more fairways. But the rest of his game, he's really putting the ball well. So he makes a lot of birdies. And he made the cut with a hero round Friday where he had like 2 different 3 birdies and he shot like 2 under. So he can make the big number because he's so aggressive, and that's what you want. You want aggressive golfers. So at 12%, I would take him over. It's hard to say. I might even take him over Fleetwood and Lowry too. Honestly, I know they're better all around players, but maybe just for a one time, then maybe these guys are really looking forward to their shot at the U.S. Open next week. Who knows what goes through people's minds? Kuchar wouldn't be a bad idea either. I mean, he came in fourth 2019 at St. George's, I think. Uh, Mitchell made a little bit of a turnaround at Memorial. I don't know if a Bent Poa. I'd rather play Keith on Bermuda. Adam Hadwin always seems to play well in these events. He's not afraid to be that Canadian that might win this tournament. They really want hashtag Team Canada. So Hadwin was actually one of my original builds. Moronk is gaining a lot of steam. If I can get low ownership on Svensson, I played him last week at Memorial thinking he was going to hit fairways and greens, but it didn't work out that way. But maybe he'll have a bounce back here where he can dial it in a little bit better. Hogard I like a lot too. I'm not so sure about the new shooter here, Ludwig Aidberg. He's definitely can play, and the ownership is down, so that's a good thing. I think if we're looking down here a little bit further, we wanted to cut it off somewhere around the mid sevens. I like Thor. Some of these guys I'm not 100% sure on. Harry Hall's been riding the putter too much. I think I'll pass on him. The approach is not there. But this does look like a course that this range right here will be interesting. And I'm going to leave this entire range in your hands, Dave, because I want to hear your thoughts on them. Anywhere, we can go from anywhere from Thagala down to Hodges or Woo or wherever. But this little mini range here is I'm interested in. So what you got for me?
Yeah, and I mean, the reason I think Young is getting the at least early own projections as high as they are, I know that Kenny and Tambo were talking about this on their pod, and especially Kenny. This is probably the easiest course that Young's has seen in weeks. Like 2.5 months, 2.5 to 3 months. This is the easiest course that Young's going to see. So if there is a week that Young is going to do it, you would think it would be this week. And obviously, I think it takes a little bit of time to build that chemistry with a new caddy. So I think they're kind of still working out the kinks. From a strength of field perspective, you would think that again this would be a tournament that Young should be able to do well at. But I'm with you. I prefer Tagala, especially when we're talking more than half the projected ownership as of right now. Tagala at just about 12% versus 25.5% Cam Young. You can give me Tagala right now.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Tagala has just as much upside as Cameron Young. To be honest with you, we've seen Tagala, step up in big events. First time playing at the Masters. The T9 versus Cameron Young 7th. I'll take Tagala, no problem.
Yeah, you got the two right here. Here's her last going back. I mean, he made the cut at Memorial.
Yep.
He made the cut at PGA Champ, and Cam Young didn't do either. Similar Wells Fargo, much better at Heritage, and similar at Masters.
Yeah. So that's why I personally will take the ownership leverage on Tagala over Young.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously there's guys that you're going to take a stand on, and they could burn you, but when you talk gaining some kind of leverage somewhere, you have to do it to be different. And whether you do it more up top or down low, that's what they're talking about. And I know Kenny and Tambo were talking about that with Rory. Right now he's showing projected 28%. They're talking maybe he gets, even closer to, 35, 40%.
Yeah, that's low. 28's low.
Yeah. So they're saying if Rory's going to get to 35 or 40%, hey, at some point when the ownership gets that high, you have to consider fading and gaining your leverage somewhere. And that's what I know they were talking about. And if he honestly gets that high, I can definitely understand taking the fade train on Rory this week. And he could win. He could easily win. He's already done it twice up in Canada. But I think if he's that high and you fade him, even if he wins, if you are different elsewhere, you could still cash, even if Rory wins all
Well,
day long.
yeah,
You know,
like you were just saying about Cam Young. I said that I think I said it in my preview video. I'm not 100%, but Rory, since he came over, he hasn't played in anything but majors and elevated events. So
yeah,
he's had the tough comp too.
yeah. And then, Moronk's getting a bunch of chatter throughout the industry. He's a very good Euro player. 8,600. I'm not sure. I'm on the fence with him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can even understand fading the 8K range. I want to say Kenny said he loves the 8K range, but obviously we've had a few guys in this 8K range withdraw recently. So again, we got to keep an eye out on these withdraws. Aberg, young kid. I think he's the top collegiate golfer, but he's been strong in the events that he's played in, whether it's Euro or PGAs. I think he's made the cut in every event that he's played on since he's come across from the collegiate level. So someone to keep an eye on. Eric Cole's probably someone that I can definitely see being like a core piece for cash. However, if you play the three guys that I mentioned in the 9K range, it might be hard to get to a 7,900 Eric Cole. So you probably are going to have to go lower, or you're going to have to come off one of those 9K guys to get the upper sevens. But Cole's someone I'm looking at. I think Alex Smalley is in play this week. I think this course sets up a lot better than last week's course did for him. So Smalley's someone I'm looking at. Uh, I don't mind Harry Hall. I do think that when we talk putting and we talk bent grass putting, I believe Harry Hall, on my second tab, I think Harry Hall is one of the top guys for bent grass putting on
Oh
my
yeah.
second tab. So I don't mind playing a little Harry Hall. And then I do like Lee Hodges as well as Vincent Double R Norman. I don't mind going to this week. And that would kind of end that, 75 to 92 range. And then we start dipping down into that lower range. So, I'll kick it back to you from that
Yeah.
last
Okay.
year level.
Sounds good. You were talking about and I really didn't think about it at the time, but Harry Hall, this could be just a different course, an easier course. Maybe he, because maybe he just needs a little bit shorter course. So he could, if he just hits a few more fairways and greens, that putting, he could knock it out the park. So I may be completely off on that, but getting down here into Double R Norman, he was in my first look. I think he's a guy that I like to play, and I like to refer to this fantasy points gained that Rick has to look at dudes down here like Batia. He is absolutely in my player pool this week. He's long enough, but he's not super long. But this is going to be perfect for him. Hit fairways and greens. He's a solid player all around, and that dude when he makes birdies, he can make birdies. So I really like his scoring ability. So he's definitely in the mix. Hubbard, I'm gonna run him back. I thought for hair on a biscuit minute he was going to win that tournament this weekend. And I thought that can't really happen, can it? Because I had like 4 or 5 lineups out of 14 with Hubbard in it, and a few of them were 6 of 6s. But then he just kind of petered out on Sunday. But he really played hard on a hard course. And Jack Nicklaus, he caught shit from some of the players. I think he really dialed up the difficulty level on Sunday. And I think he does it on purpose because I think he's a bitter old man that can't play golf anymore. And he's like, I'm going to really stick it to these young boys. They don't remember how I was when I was playing. I was the bomber, and I was Rory before Rory. I'm just bullshitting, but it does feel like that sometimes. But then you got SH Kim, who got me through the cut. This might be a little bit too much birdie fest for him. I like him on harder courses because he's just so steady across the board. You can see he doesn't gain a lot of DraftKings points, but he makes a lot of cuts. Then you go down here a little bit more. Everybody's favorite Carson Young. If he stays under 10%, I'll just keep riding him because he's just good across the board as well. everything checks all the boxes. Accuracy, greens and regulation. Don't see anything wrong with that. I said on the Discord I was playing Ches, and I will play Ches because I think maybe he's going to get a few more because he was really, I mean, he was making cuts where he shouldn't be making cuts, like at the PGA and Mexico, where he's, distance matters and he's short. But I made this other comment. The dude hasn't been a good putter for a year and a half. And then he's looked and I think he's gained in the last 7 straight events. So if he keeps riding that, and he's another good bent putter, I don't know. Let's check your bent putting right quick. I don't know if he's going to make this list or not. He's been bad for so long, so yeah, he won't. But anyway, bent is his better surface. I'll tell you that. And I don't know how far down in the 6K range I'm going to go. Because then you got Dylan Wu. I'm going to give him another crack. He's third in your model. I like that. So I'll absolutely be looking into some Dylan Wu. Terrible missed cut at the Charles Schwab, and Byron Nelson. So he's had a couple of bad runs here recently, but the ball striking's still there. So then you get down into somebody, I don't know, you're the Sneds whisperer. What'd you think of him last week? He look all right?
I didn't get to see much of him, but I was quite surprised that he made the cut, especially for the amount of time he's been off,
Yeah.
from that surgery he had. But he actually is in my player pool right now. Making the cut was impressive to me last week, coming right back from that long layoff. And he's got some, obviously it's a new course, but he has some history in Canada.
He certainly does.
At 7K flat, again, at 7K, all you really need is a made cut.
I was going to say, I don't think anybody's going to play him, are they?
I doubt it. I mean, from early ownership, I would say he's got to be sub 2% probably.
Yeah, right around 2.
I haven't looked at it yet, but I would expect him to be pretty low owned.
Yeah.
So I think Snedeker is someone that I probably will take a couple shares of him. Yeah, he's showing about just a shade over 2% as of right now. So, I mean, he's someone that I don't mind, especially like you mentioned, Dylan Wu. Dylan Wu, as of right now, is projecting at 9. So, I mean, when you're talking GPPs, if you're gaining almost, good 4.5 times the leverage by playing Snedeker versus Wu, I don't mind that call. So, someone I definitely would not mind playing this week would be Snedeker.
Well, he's the type of guy that can thrive on this golf course because obviously he's not long off the tee. Although I don't know, these stats have got to be jaded in somewhat, but he's really not. I mean, he's never been great off the tee. He's always been a solid wedge player and a dude that can get hot fire around the green and putting, especially on like that POA type stuff. So he's an interesting play. I'm gonna have my eye on him. He might just be, I don't know if it was just he just caught lightning in the bottle to make the cut at Memorial, but like you said, he's got good history here. I mean, back when he was before the injury, he could compete. So this is the type of course he can compete on. Pushing down here a little further, Sam Bennett probably will get a look from me. He was pretty impressive making the cut at Memorial. But the Masters was a good run too. So he's turned pro. He might just be a lot more confident. So he's interesting. And there's some guys down here. I mean, EVR he's just like, he'll have 2 good tournaments and then he'll just be horrible for a while. But I'll have to deep dive into this even more. Just flashing down here. Garrard would be somebody I might look at. Maybe Roger Sloan. I don't know. There was one more guy way down here that I was gonna peek at, and my stupid thing is trackball is not working right for me here, so I can't get down here. But I thought it was down here around 6,000, 6,100, and it's got to be. Here we go. Let's see if it name strikes me, and it's definitely not Michael fucking Block. Damn, the name has escaped me. Well, I will post it on Twitter or the Discord or something because I know there was like a real cheap dude down here that caught my eye and that I thought I might have some interest in, but I've completely forgotten. So my apologies. Anybody else down here you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk below 75, for those that watched the pod last week, you heard me mention David Lipsky last week.
Yeah.
um,
I played him
and
the
I
week
mentioned,
before and he really did good for me. And I don't know why I didn't ride him again.
yeah, I mentioned him last week on the pod, and I didn't play him, so that was a kick in the nuts that I mentioned him, and I decided not to go to him. Mackenzie Hughes, recent form, not great, but again, Mackenzie Hughes is the Canadian, and he's got some good history at the RBC Canadian. So someone that I wouldn't mind taking a few shares on this week would be Mackenzie Hughes. Ben Martin grading out exceptionally well in the model. Another Canadian, or actually no, Ben Martin's the United States, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Ben Silverman's a Canadian, but Ben Martin had been making a string of cuts until he missed the cut at the Wells Fargo. Um, I prefer playing Hubbard at the same price. Hubbard's probably a core play this week, especially if you want to go to those three guys in the 9K range for cash. I definitely don't mind Hubbard as, like your fourth guy in for cash lineups. Aaron Badley, I think, is someone I'm looking at this week. Might be someone that I would possibly consider in a cash build this week. He's not the greatest guy in the world, but he's
No,
been
I've heard
solid
him
over the
mentioned
last
as well. Uh,
he's been pretty solid over the last few months. So I mean, I definitely don't mind badly. Ches Reavie, I already had down in my player pool this week. Again, you know, he's been playing pretty well. He's not going to grade out well in models, but I do think that he's someone that sets up relatively well for this course. You already mentioned Carson Young. Carson Young might be a core play for people this week, and I know he's been chattered out a lot this week. Another guy who's being chattered a lot is Aaron Cockrell. I do believe he's a Canadian, but he plays mainly, I think, on the Corn Ferry Tour, the DP World Tour. But at 7K flat, he's a guy that I would possibly look at. Um, Andrew Novak, who I've been playing a lot of, uh,
yeah.
he's been making a lot of cuts. Again, not the greatest of finishes, but at 7K flat, a cut made is a cut made. And that's the importance of getting 6 of 6s through this week because, like you mentioned, below the 7K range, it's definitely kind of ugly this week. Where last week at the Memorial, it was such an elevated event. There were plenty of plays that were sub 7K. Where this week it's going to be a little more difficult to find those sub 7K plays. But like you had already mentioned, Bennett's someone that I'd be considered at sub 7. Um, and you'll see the guys that are in my player pool, like Sung You'll Know. I think Sung You'll Know is someone that you could possibly look at this week at sub 7K. I know Kenny's last cash game cornerstone this week is Kramer Hickok. So I think Hickok is someone to consider.
Yeah.
And then a couple guys that I just added to my player pool this week would be, and they're showing up on those secondary stats that I post on the second tab. Justin Lauer showing up several times, Callum Terrence showing up several times, as is Chesson Hadley is showing up a good amount in some of those second tidbits that I post on that second tab. Whether or not I play them is another story, but as of right now, they're in the player pool as some dart throws to consider.
Cool. All right. Yeah, and that was one last thing to wrap things up was I think what I'm going to try to do is actually tighten my player pool. I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like with last week's field being an invitational, you can spread out more because you got a better chance of making the cut. In events like that, the larger percentage of the field make the cut. But when you have 150 golfers, the percentage drops dramatically. So I feel like tightening your pool up more is going to give you a better chance of cranking out more 6 of 6s. And that's just a thought. So here for David, appreciate you coming on with me, brother. And hopefully we'll win us some money this week and get ready for LA next week, baby. Till then, see you soon.